Hey TFC, thank you for taking this time to pause with us as we grieve 2 whole years officially in a pandemic. I remember when we first started and a whole lot of us thought, oh yeah, we'll work through these first couple of months, we'll be back to normal. And that was 2 years later and we're still in the pandemic. It reminds me of growing up as a kid. We had Bible drill. Everybody may not be able to relate to Bible drill. I know Rich Auntie can, Autumn Clay. We had a very similar upbringing. In Bible drill, we learn different scriptures and we learn how to say all of the books of the Bible in order. I used to be able to do all the books of the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament in order, really fast too. And one of the books of the Bible that always stuck out to me was Lamentations. And it's really interesting to me because Bible drill taught me that Lamentations was a book in the Bible, but no one ever took the time to explain to me the meaning of the word lament. Because lament is the root word of Lamentations. And lament means to grieve. So it's very refreshing to me now as an adult to realize there's an entire book in the Bible that's dedicated to grieving. The ancient wisdom of the writers of scripture recognize that grief and lament is important enough to dedicate an entire book to it. So as I sit here and reflect on the ways that I continue to grieve and have grieved during this pandemic, there are two in particular that I want to share with you. And what's very interesting about them is that while I think of the ways that I grieve, those same situations also bring up a certain amount of gratitude within me. So I have grieved drastically not being able to gather with you all in person. There are some people who relationships were beginning to really develop prior to the pandemic because we were gathering in person. And those relationships look different now after 2 years in the pandemic. And it's been difficult because I like to hug people. I like to see people. I like to talk to people face to face. I love the banter that happens when we get together in person, but I've had to grieve the loss of that, like many pastors have. At the same time, I'm grateful because if not for the pandemic, some of you who have joined us virtually probably would have never discovered TFC and we never would have met you. So I'm grateful while I grieve. On a much more personal level, I have grieved during the past 2 years that between my wife and I, we have had 4 surgeries during this pandemic. And it feels like we're constantly in recovery. I had 2 surgeries first. Last year, I was on my back for 5 months on crutches, couldn't do anything. And since then, Pamela's had 2 surgeries, and it feels like we're constantly in recovery, and that's tiring, it's exhausting, and it brings up feelings of grief because we think about what we could have done if we didn't have a need for those surgeries. At the same time, I'm grateful because I've heard so many stories of people who needed surgeries during the pandemic and they got canceled. But somehow our surgeries happened to land in pockets where there were no complications. We were able to get right in. So I'm grateful because we needed them. But I think the pandemic brings up a lot of different emotions, and I'm grateful that we have this opportunity together to grieve together, to get in touch with that part of our humanity and not needing to squash it. I don't bring up my gratitude to dismiss my grief, but I hold them in tension with each other, understanding that my grief does not negate my gratitude, and my gratitude doesn't negate my grief. So I'm glad that you're with us, and I hope that this is giving you an opportunity as well to sit with that grief as well as your gratitude. We'll see y'all soon.